What if China manages to colonize Mars before NASA or SpaceX? What kind of impact would it make on space exploration programs and the future of humanity? Hello, and welcome back to another video of The Door to the Universe. Well, the most immediate result of China colonizing Mars could be a shift in the global balance of power. With increased resources, technological advancement, and political prestige, China could come to dominate the celestial landscape. Colonizing Mars would be a significant and unprecedented challenge for any country, and it is still being determined whether it is even possible. Mars is a harsh and unforgiving environment with a thin atmosphere, extreme temperature fluctuations, and high radiation levels. Creating a self-sustaining human settlement on the planet would require significant technological advancements in life support systems, energy production, and resource utilization. It would also require solving the challenge of creating a stable source of food, water, and air for human inhabitants. In addition to the technological challenges, there are also significant logistical and financial hurdles to overcome. Transporting people and equipment to Mars would require significant resources and infrastructure, and the cost of building and maintaining a human settlement on the planet would be immense. Furthermore, the long-term health effects of living in the Martian environment are largely unknown, and potential risks are associated with exposure to the planet's radiation and other environmental hazards. Despite these challenges, there is significant interest and investment in Mars colonization among several space agencies and private companies, and significant progress has been made in space exploration in recent years. However, much remains to be learned and developed before the dream of creating a self-sustaining human settlement on Mars can become a reality. The Chinese government has made a significant commitment to space exploration and has steadily increased its investment in the field over the years. China has invested in developing its space launch vehicles, such as the Long March rocket series, and has launched several successful crewed and robotic missions. In 2020, China launched its first mission to Mars, becoming the second country after the United States to do so. In contrast, both NASA and SpaceX have experienced budget cuts and funding challenges in recent years. NASA's budget has remained relatively flat, and the agency has had to contend with high-profile budget cuts and program cancellations. SpaceX, meanwhile, has faced financial challenges, including the loss of its Falcon 9 rocket in 2016 and the explosion of a Falcon 9 during a launch pad test in 2017. These budgetary challenges have limited NASA and SpaceX's ability to pursue certain projects, such as developing new launch vehicles and creating permanent human settlements on other planets. However, both organizations continue to pursue ambitious space exploration projects despite these limitations, with NASA's Artemis program aiming to send humans back to the Moon by 2024 and SpaceX's Starship program aiming to establish a human settlement on Mars in the coming decades. China has yet to publicly release detailed information about its plans for colonization on Mars, making it unclear whether it involves creating a sustainable ecosystem or simply establishing a human presence there. China's 2020 mission to Mars, the Tianwen-1, was primarily focused on conducting scientific research and surveying the planet's surface to prepare for future missions. The mission included a lander, a rover, and an orbiter, designed to gather information about Mars's geology, climate, and environment. While China has expressed interest in establishing a permanent human presence on Mars, it is still being determined what the scope and goals of their colonization plans are. China's colonization efforts may initially focus on establishing a base or outpost on Mars to support scientific research, with the eventual goal of building a self-sustaining ecosystem. Creating a sustainable ecosystem on Mars would require significant technological and infrastructure advancements and a long-term commitment to resource management and environmental sustainability. It would also require solving the challenge of creating a stable source of food, water, and air for human inhabitants. Currently, no international agreement prohibits any country from colonizing Mars, and several space agencies, including NASA and SpaceX, have expressed interest in establishing a human settlement on the Red Planet. However, if China became the first nation to establish a permanent human presence on Mars, it could gain a significant advantage in the space race. Firstly, a successful colonization effort would establish China as the leading nation in space exploration and elevate its international reputation. The first nation to colonize Mars would also have the opportunity to establish itself as the leader in space technology and innovation. Secondly, the colonization of Mars would allow China to secure vital resources and establish a strategic foothold on the Red Planet. Mars is rich in minerals, including iron, magnesium, and aluminum, which could be used for future space missions and even potentially for use on Earth. Additionally, Mars could be used as a launch pad for further space exploration, providing China with a strategic advantage over other nations. Finally, the colonization of Mars could also have significant economic benefits, as it could create new industries and markets, such as space tourism, that China could capitalize on. If China were to establish a colony on the Red Planet before NASA and SpaceX, it would certainly bring up questions of territorial sovereignty and the legality of colonizing other planets. China's colonization of Mars would likely involve establishing a military presence to defend its territory from potential threats. This could include setting up a base with weapons and surveillance systems to monitor and deter intruders or hostile actions from other countries. The international community would respond to China's actions on Mars with concerns over the militarization of space and the potential for conflict between nations. It could also lead to increased competition between China and other spacefaring nations, such as the United States, Russia, and Europe, in their efforts to explore and colonize Mars. Furthermore, China's colonization of Mars could have significant geopolitical and economic implications. It could give China an edge in the space race and boost its standing as a global superpower, potentially leading to greater political influence and control over resources in space. The Chinese government would invest heavily in research and development for new technologies related to space exploration, such as improved propulsion systems, advanced life support systems, and more efficient ways to generate power and produce resources for the planet. The Chinese government's investment in space exploration technology could also have far-reaching implications for various industries, including aerospace, mining, and energy production. It could lead to the creation of new jobs and businesses and the development of new technologies that could be used in other industries on Earth. Furthermore, China's dominance in the field of space exploration could have significant geopolitical implications. It could lead to increased international influence and power and greater control over space resources. It could also spark competition and tensions between China and other spacefaring nations as they strive to keep up with China's advancements in the field. Moreover, the United States and other countries would likely try to establish their colonies on Mars to keep up with China's technological advancements and maintain its status as a leading spacefaring nation. Establishing multiple colonies on Mars would likely lead to increased cooperation and collaboration between countries as they work together to explore and colonize the planet. It could also lead to sharing resources and information, with countries pooling their knowledge and resources to achieve common goals. However, the competition between countries could also lead to tensions and conflicts, especially if there are disputes over territorial sovereignty or control of resources on the planet. It is possible that countries could even try to assert their dominance on Mars, leading to potential geopolitical implications and even military conflict. Overall, if China were to colonize Mars before NASA and SpaceX, it would likely result in significant investment in research and development for new technologies related to space exploration. This investment could have far-reaching implications for various industries. It could also give China a significant advantage in the space race, leading to geopolitical implications that are yet to be fully understood.